I'm going to paint a picture here, and it's rather topical. You are the owner of a coffee roastery. You're a small roastery. You are head of QC. You are the person who is in charge in quality control, sending your delicious coffee out to your wonderful customers. But like me today, you've got a stinking cold. So what do? You can't taste very well. Well, I'll tell you a few things that I do here at my company, BlendingRoom, in order to release coffee that I'm fairly certain is delicious. So these are some tips and tricks. Number one, please do not roast a brand new coffee. If you can't rely on your nose or your palate, or like me today, I've got a bit of a sore throat, don't release new coffee. If you do, I mean, it's idiotic. You've got to be able to do proper quality control on a new coffee before it goes out the door. You've got no data to work on. And data is important when it comes to the actual release of a coffee when your factory system is under duress like mine is today. So there's tip number one, don't release a new coffee. Number two, please cup, because you never know what you might actually be able to pick up. I today have a bit of a sore throat. I've got a bit of a cold. I probably don't sound particularly fantastic, but I'm gonna cup anyway. These are some delightful Brazil coffees. A couple of coffees that I've tasted 1,000 times, and I've got a broad understanding about what those will be texturally in my mouth. I've got an understanding of what they'll be in aroma profile and some of the acidity. And what I'm gonna try and do is just pick out some of the qualities that may be present in the cup that will give me confidence to approve each one of these batches. Yes, I haven't been able to pick up the flighty top notes, but I can broadly understand that each one of these doesn't have a roast defect. Most roast defects are pretty perceivable even when your palate is under attack like mine is. So do cup. Maybe if you are a part of a team, don't cup as a group. Keep your diseases to yourself. Next, because you're roasting a coffee that you have roasted many times before, use roast data. I don't know any roastery inside of the UK now that doesn't use some degree of roast software in order to track their roasting throughout a period of time. I use Cropster. I've used Cropster for over a decade, so I have a lot of data based on the coffees that I have and roast regularly inside of my portfolio. I'm going to show you now how I would analyze a bunch of batches to approve or hold back coffees that I may need to taste when my taste buds return. On the screen now, you will see an overlay of 5 batches of the Pantano. It's a core product of mine. It forms the basis of all of our blends. I sell it as a single origin to our wholesale customers, and I also release it as a single origin for filter for many of our retail clients. So what I've done here is I've taken a sample set of maybe 25 batches that I performed on Wednesday of this week. I'm filming this on Friday. I've taken 2 from the beginning, 2 from the end, and a random one in between. I've then checked to see whether there are any anomalies in the rate of rise curves or the actual bean temperature curve over time. The important thing here is I can see the bean temperature curves are really tightly mapped. There doesn't seem to be any peaks and troughs, any blips, any anomalies that would tell me that something untoward has happened throughout the roast profile. So I'm reasonably confident at this point, based on the roast curves, that each of these batches would be fairly similar to each other. I then confirm this by looking at the rate of rise. Are there any anomalies that are stark, profound? Now, these curves are a bit more sensitive than the bean curve. They will bump around. There's, as you can see, lots of ups and downs. It's a rocky road. But there's nothing inside of this, maybe apart from batch 27157, that looks a little bit different to the rest. So what do I do with this one? On this basis, I'll refer up to the bean curve. Has the rate of rise curve up and down, that peak that you can see here and the trough that you can see there, has that had a material impact in the actual bean curve? Does it diverge from the overlays of other ones? No, it doesn't. So I'm again fairly confident that there's going to be similarities. And I say similarities because These batches have to taste as close to each other as possible. Professional coffee roasters pride themselves on tight roast profiles, flavor that isn't divergent from one batch to the next. We want consistency. Okay, so all good so far. Next, I'll go to the heat profile. Cropster allows me to map how much gas I put into the roast throughout its roast cycle, and each of the applications need to be somewhat similar. The reason being is that we as coffee roasters are transferring energy from outside into the beans. Energy transference or thermal transfer is super important, and the way we deliver that thermal transfer is very important overall for flavor in the cup. So I want this thermal transfer to be as similar to each other, bearing in mind that you do have to make slight adjustments at various points in the roast to keep your bean temperature curve on track. So I am fairly happy that each one of these profiles has gone through a fairly similar, so not exactly, but a fairly similar heat transfer. Okay, so we're looking good so far. Next, I'll look at the modulation chart. So what is the modulation chart? Well, in Cropster terms, it's an overlay of your drying phase, your Maillard phase, and the development phases. 3 phases of the roast that are very important in building and developing flavor inside of the cup. The nice thing about these is that they're stacked. I can therefore see whether there are any wild and wacky differences between each one of those phases. There isn't much. So, another tick in the confidence box that these roasts should taste the same. Finally, and very importantly, I come down to the minutiae of this Cropster data, and that's where the data gives me the overall roast time, the development time, and the end temperatures. I want to make sure that these are tight as possible. I like to have an end temperature variance of no greater than 1 degree Celsius. I also, where possible, like not to have a roast profile exceed 5 seconds between the spread. So for reference purposes, as you can see on this, we've got a longest roast of 9 minutes and 45 and a shortest roast of 9 minutes and 42. So the spread is 3 seconds, and I am happy with that because it sits within my acceptable range of tolerances. Coming to the end temperatures, we've got a low side of 217.4 and a top side of 218.1. This too fits within my 1 degree Celsius swing from the lowest to the highest. So again, I'm fairly confident for the most people that you would not be able to perceive the difference between each of these batches, especially when they're brewed as a coffee in a cafe, which is where this coffee is being sent to. Potentially on a cupping table, a well-developed palate would be able to perceive slight differences, but they're going to be so slight that it's acceptable to pass these coffees out to our customers. Okay, so I have now done the roast analysis. I've attempted to do a cupping with my sore throat and can't smell much. What do I do next? Well, I make a brew. Cupping coffee is incredibly important when it comes to the quality control and analysis of your roast profiles through time, and especially when you're releasing things to your customers. In this instance, because I've got a downgraded palate and I can't smell, I've got to rely on extra factors in order to be confident that when I send this coffee out to our customers, they're going to have a nice experience. So I will always bring in a third and final point in a brew. So I've done the cupping, I've done that sort of quality control as I would usually do, I've done the roast profile analysis. Now I'm going to brew a cup of the coffee and attempt to taste it to further qualify that this is okay to send. Now, in that, I can't taste any problems with the actual roast profiling. You could see on the screen that there was nothing that fell outside of my tolerances, so I'm fairly confident that this is going to be well received by our customers. And that, my friends, is how I deal with not being able to taste and smell and releasing confidently coffees to our customers when I can't rely on myself. What do you think? Are there any other roasters out there that go through similar processes? Is there anything that I've missed? something that I could add into this process that would give me an extra layer of confidence. If you're a roaster, let me know in the comments below. It would be really useful. And also build up some rapport between other roasters and share ideas about what we do when we're in this situation. I hope that's been useful to some, and I hope if you're one of my customers, I've built in an extra layer of trust that I do try my hardest in order to release consistently good coffee through time, even when I can't taste. Until next time, enjoy your coffee. Cheers.